Hi, and welcome to News24's Top Corner, where we'll be discussing all things 2022 FIFA World Cup. It's the business end of the tournament, and in studio with me we have News24 Sport chief writer, Rob Houwing. Rob, it's always good to chat to you. And if I were to fast forward to last week's conversation, I mean, you were spot on when we were speaking about England. Were you quite surprised in terms of how easy it was for them to get past Senegal?
Very. I was discussing the match beforehand with a few English relatives. I mean, I have a British wife, and of course her parents are football nuts over there. And they were quite cagey. They were a little bit concerned because they knew about Senegal being the African champions. And I shared with my father-in-law the belief that England might sort of scrape it by 1-0 or by one goal, something like that. I was quite disappointed with the way it turned out for Senegal. I didn't feel that Senegal really fired a shot. I think you'll agree that they were a little bit muted on the night. You just got the sense that there was a little bit of self-belief lacking, which was a bit disappointing. You know, we were all wanting the African champions to put on a little bit of razzle-dazzle, but they were. Having said that, I suppose you've got to give quite a lot of credit to England. England were clinical without being totally thrilling, but they got the job done. And there was enough strength in that performance by England for them to feel pretty confident about still creaking a little bit further in this tournament. Whether they go all the way, I'm not sure. We'll come to that, I'm sure, but they are reasonably well poised. I still wouldn't consider them among my sort of top two favourites from here. But disappointing the way Senegal bowed out after what had been a pretty competitive tournament by them up to that point.
Yes, it seems like they're taking the tournament form from 2018 as well as from the 2020-21 Euro tournament as well. And players such as Jude Bellingham, Harry Maguire, who's faced fair criticism with Manchester United, they come into the fore, as well as Jordan Henderson. And those type of players, even funny enough, Harry Kane, who's creeping in to become England's top goal scorer, he's the highest assist in the tournament, something that tells you a lot about the way England are playing at the moment.
That's right, and Kane is kind of he doesn't seem too fazed by the fact that goals haven't come that easily, although he has got onto the sheet. So he can still feel personally as if he's got a role to play in the goal scoring department as the tournament gets to that sort of the hardcore stage. But so many good players around him, especially with England having some really young players coming through. You mentioned Bellingham, who's obviously the subject of much discussion about the very likely move, it seems, back to England with Liverpool. At the time as we were chatting, we were wondering about how that would play out. It looked as though a move was pretty imminent. And you're also quite right in mentioning someone like Harry Maguire, as we all know, a little bit of a laughingstock at times in his Manchester United shirt, but something seems to click when he puts on the England shirt, and he's contributed to England having one of the most stable defences and one of the toughest teams to break down in the tournament. There are positives for England, even as their overall package, I still think, is just a little bit short of the full Monty.
Yes, and now the three Lions face defending champions France will come up against the likes of Kylian Mbappe. How do they stop a man like that who's now on 9 goals at World Cup tournaments?
Wow, I mean, what a player to watch. He's probably been the individual who's been the most watchable player at the tournament. We know it's only his second tournament. Although at the age of 23, it's almost a bit of a bonus that he's got one behind him already from the age of as a late teenager. Incredible to think how many more tournaments he's probably got ahead of him too. But I thought that against Poland, was it in the round of 16?
Yes.
He was beginning to look as if he was reaching maximum form, which is very ominous to all comers who France might face down the line. I think England will have looked with a certain amount of nervousness at the way he played. I mean that. Apart from his skills and the way he sort of runs into space, the ball at his feet, the command he has with the ball at his feet, but also how he doesn't need much of a backlift to release a tornado of a shot. His shot is not. It's not the most sort of. It's not like a golf swing. He doesn't need the most exaggeration to get that leg into sort of overdrive, and any goalkeeper seeing him sort of 10 or 20 or even further yards out is going to be having that sort of old white knuckle thing about is there a big a booming shot about to be unleashed. I think he's a terrific player and certainly one of the most compelling to watch at the tournament so far. And with his race is not run.
Yes, rightly you said last week, teams that sort of face that come lukewarm into the tournament and sort of pick up pace as the tournament progresses, such as the Netherlands and Argentina. That's the next games. If I think back to 1974, 1978, and 1998, as well as 2014 when they faced each other in the semi-final. There's always a player in the middle, put on the pedestal. We think of Johan Cruyff, we think of Diego Maradona, we think of Dennis Bergkamp at the 1998 game, and now in the modern era we think of Lionel Messi. How do you see that game on Friday playing out? I mean, it's always a special feel when the Dutch and the Argentines meet.
It is. It's actually my one. If you ask me, my one single earliest World Cup memory, it was as a 10-year-old in 1974. Now, we didn't have anything like live television. I don't think we had television yet in South Africa at the time. But I've mentioned to you before that my father is Dutch, a very keen Dutch supporter. And we went to a little place in Strand Street in Cape Town in 1974, a week or so after the match had been played, because videos got shipped out or flown out to a little sort of video sports cinema place where you could watch the game a week later. And we watched the whole of Holland-Argentina in the second group stage of the 1974 tournament. Now, we all know that Dutch team is probably the greatest team not to have won a World Cup. They should have won that 1974 tournament. And I do have memories as a young child of watching Argentinian players rugby tackling Dutch players to try to stop that total football. It was an amazing sight. The Argentinians were quite feisty and fired up and doing everything they could to prevent the Dutch total football, run by guys like Johan Cruyff and Johan Neeskens. And then 78, they met in the final in a very stormy match in Argentina. Argentina was under a military dictatorship at the time. The hostility in the stadium in Buenos Aires in the final was quite tangible. And there was bad blood for various reasons, lots of little controversies and gamesmanship by both sides before the match. I do recall how one of Holland's many hard luck stories, as you know, in World Cup history, was when they had a chant through Robbie Rensenbrink. He hit the post right at the end of, I can't remember if it was extra time or an ordinary play, but it was a strike that would have won the match and the World Cup for them. But he hit the post, and then the match progressed to sort of advanced drama, and as we know, Argentina won it. Mario Kempes was a big name that year, the striker. And since then, Holland-Argentina has always had a grudge feel to it. Maybe a little bit less so now. I suspect Argentina will be slight favourites for this. I think I mentioned to you last time that I'm still not that impressed by this particular Dutch vintage. I don't think there are enough individuals who really stand out like those icons of the past. And I think Leo Messi and co might just get over the line here, but it'll be quite a tight one. But my tip would be Argentina.
Yes, and I mean the way the Dutch have been playing, as you mentioned, they haven't really come to the fore at the right time or at the right moment. And if they come up against the likes of Argentina with Lionel Messi, as you mentioned last week, who only at 35 years old, still have a couple of years behind him, if they creak in, if he finds that form, although I mean in the previous match against Australia, they looked pretty well in terms of attacking prowess and moving forward. Yes,
definitely. The thing about Messi is he's still a great destroyer of the best laid plans. He drags defenders out of position. He creates uncertainty. He will be yet again the talisman, in this match. I wouldn't write off the Dutch. I think they have a chance, especially if we get dragged all the way beyond 90 minutes, extra time.
They're quite defensive. Sorry to cut you word there. They're quite defensive.
Yeah.
As well, and Cody Gakpo, Memphis Depay, Virgil van Dijk. There are some players there that has good quality, but I have to agree with you in terms of it's something about the Dutch and the World Cup that they can't just jump over that broom and finish it off.
That's right. It's the Proteas in white ball World Cups, isn't it? It's that syndrome. It's that do we have it within ourselves to break the bogey? And the more you think about it, the harder it is to actually pull it through. The one thing I suppose is that there are a lot of fairly even even strength European sides as usual who've reached the advanced stage of the World Cup. I think I made a note that there are, well, in the quarterfinals, of course, there are 5 European teams. In 2018, there were 6. It tells you so much about the center of power and where the money lies in world football. You know, the best players do tend to still get coaxed to playing their club football in Europe, and it's then reflected in how things turn out for a lot of the national sides. Also, I think in the quarterfinals, I think 7 of the 8 teams are in the top 12 of the FIFA rankings going into the tournament, which also tells you that the rankings are pretty spot on in many ways, you know, with the world balance of power, and the fact that Europe still sort of holds center stage. Of course, we are praying for that little African, that flag that's still flying defiantly for the African cause. We're obviously hoping that comes home to roost nicely for our continent.
And on that point, we haven't been short of any surprises or any shockers when it comes to, you know, this World Cup already. Almost 40 matches already have been played, and we head into that match with Morocco taking on Portugal. But my oh my, what happened in that game against Spain as to how they just stuck to their guns, you know, saw the plan through. Their coach Walid even mentioned in their post-match saying that the plan was to allow Spain to have more of the ball, because, you know, that famous tiki-taka football, that the brand that has been so strong throughout European football and which they have moved forward with, somehow did not work against the Moroccans.
Yeah, I mean, they kept them lateral, didn't they? As you said, you know, the ball was ping-ponging across the field, but not necessarily, you know, finding that punch up at the top end. And it was, as much as anything, I thought it was a masterclass in sort of in team unity. The Moroccan side, as we know, came in reasonably unsung. We all thought Senegal would be, as African champions, the top side. Morocco, of course, are the second-ranked, I think, African side anyway, aren't they, going into the tournament? And they're ranked 22 in the world, so not too far away. And they have shown their pedigree. I remember making a note that I think at this tournament they've only conceded 1 goal in open play, which was against Canada when they won 2-1. But, you know, they... of course, you know, it was 0-0 in open play against Spain, and we all know what happened in the shootout. A marvelous performance, considering how you know, the Moroccans have had to. They've had to play some big guns already. You know, they've played Spain, the biggest upset of all probably. They've beaten Belgium, second ranked in the world, and they drew 0-0 with Croatia, who are the losing finalists from the last World Cup, and are, as we know, still, you know, hanging in at this one. So they've had very few easy games, and defensively they've been rock solid. I don't know about their prowess going forward. If they suddenly need goals, you know, if they have to come from behind against Portugal, I will have some fears.
Yes.
I think the floodgates could just open. But as long as they keep holding Portugal, the better the chance they have, obviously, of taking the game deep. I mean, I'm sure Morocco would love to take the game to penalties again. You know, so that's going to be an enthralling match as well. But you know, you have to say Portugal will be the favourites, but Morocco won't mind that.
Morocco won't mind that indeed, especially with the way things have been going for Portugal at this World Cup, with Ronaldo at centre stage, you know, bench for their match against Switzerland, which I was quite surprised by. But a tactic that worked out with, I mean, Ramos getting a hat-trick and moving forward and taking Portugal to the quarterfinals.
Yes, I mean, as a sort of direct replacement, really, Ramos getting that first hat-trick was quite something. I mean, Ronaldo had a face like thunder, didn't he, in the dugout? You know, we all know that there are egos that play with these top stars, and Ronaldo is obviously very centrally discussed when it comes to sort of footballing egos and you know, mental makeups and how other players respond to a particular superstar in their midst, etc., etc. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what further role Ronaldo has. You can never write off the possibility of him still putting a crucial stamp on the World Cup if that opportunity still arises. Yes. But it seems as if for the moment he's been sidelined. And of course they've had other little interesting moments, like Pepe, you know, at 39. Coming on and getting a goal and showing the sort of the leap of a 19-year-old. So that's been another little source of interest in this Portuguese side. Again, I'm not certain Portugal can go all the way, but you can't write them off either.
Exactly, you can't write him off. And I mean, it would be wrong of me to not even bring up Brazil, a team that sort of danced their way into the quarterfinals. How do you see that match playing out against Croatia?
Look, I've loved the Brazilians. I've really enjoyed watching them. I think that I was listening to one of the SuperSport pundits. I think it was Kalusha Bwalia was talking about how he rated this particular vintage of Brazil, and he said that they were not getting quite the kudos that they deserve. They're possibly better than some Brazilian teams that have gone a long way in the tournament. I think Brazil might just get past Croatia. Croatia, tough nut to crack. Guys who've been there, done that in terms of the experience of a World Cup final. Obviously, I think we discussed last time that we felt perhaps some of their players were getting a little bit aged, the Croatians, but they can't be written off. But I think Brazil will take them in open play before we get down to the sort of the white knuckle drama of penalties. I hope there aren't too many more penalty shootouts. I know the public quite like them.
But we haven't seen plenty in this World Cup.
That's right. But some of the penalty taking's been a little bit dubious. The whole cat and mouse approach to penalties, I found a little strange. I'm still of the old school who believes kind of pick your spot, high and hard to the left and right, where 19 times out of 20 you should beat the goalkeeper if you've shot with sort of enough venom and accuracy. This tactical little cat and mouse with the goalkeeper waiting to see what his move is, and the little shimmy as you run up for the penalties. There's a high element of risk involved, and sometimes it doesn't pay off. But the public love a penalty shootout. Let's face it, the drama is unparalleled. For sheer tension. But I do hope that a lot of the quarterfinals are decided by conventional football. Are decided in open play, which is really as it should be.
And less time for us in front of the screens anyway. Rob, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. And thank you for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to News24 and download the app. We'll be back next week. This is News24 Top's Corner.